So yeah, I mean, there's plenty of stories like that. I guess the other major misconception, I suppose, that you might have been referring to was this idea that that science is about certainty. Is a sort of feeling that we get, I suppose, when people tell us what we ought to eat and what we ought not to eat, and it changes every month, and we get frustrated about it. It's this idea that maybe scientists ought to really know, and it's all black and white, and in fact, it's not like that at all. And science is certainly much more about doubt than about certainty, and it's about people trying to pull apart each other's theories and find the flaws in somebody else's work. So, in fact, you ask a scientist something, it's very hard to get a straight answer because they know that it's almost impossible to be 100% sure about everything, and it's all about a balance of probabilities and what can you test, what can you believe, what can't you believe, and we all know it's certainly shades of grey, and maybe that's not always that well understood.
I was just going to ask the authors as well what drew them to their particular choice, their particular character. Starting with you, Stella.
I picked two others, but you told me someone else had already met. I was quite keen. Was it the ever-expanding universe? Was that
Accelerating
I
universe.
was quite excited by that. No, but I went for Spacetime because it didn't seem to have a moment. So, as somebody who isn't very literal when it comes to short fiction, I write novels mostly. So when I write short fiction, I feel much more like I can go wild. So I thought, great, this doesn't have... I mean, no, we don't know. That's why it's all maybe. We seriously don't know. Nothing was written. Maybe had Minkowski lived, had he not died suddenly, I suppose he would have been getting the awards and this would have been written up, but it's not what happened. So he did all of this, and it all goes into the general theory of relativity, but then he's dead. So we actually don't know what thinking was going on for him. What we do know is that David Hilbert did say this fantastic thing that for us it was like walking in a garden of ideas, which is just the most beautiful metaphysical concept around a very concrete, how do we make a mathematical version that is beautiful and simple. So for me, I thought, I can do that because I don't have to get it. Right? I only have to get it as a concept over here to bring it into some writing stuff. It's not something that's going to be too hard for me. And I didn't want to do it badly, or that's not for me to judge, but I wanted to try and do it as well as I could and not to fudge it too much. So I thought I could grasp that one. That's why, yeah.
And Zoe, Lise Meitner is an incredibly complicated character, surrounded by these world-changing events, and very much in isolation and out on a limb. Did you find that difficult writing about her in that regard?
Yeah, it was really difficult because in some ways this story is so complex and there's so much in her life that you end up just writing a novel of my story got bigger and bigger, and she was a really amazing character stroke person for me, because by the point you meet her in the story, she's 59 and she's won the obstacle. She's overcome obstacles of gender. She's like she's spent years fighting for a position in the institute. Quite a shy woman. She had a lot of respect for that, and then the whole rug is pulled out from under, and during Nuremberg laws in the early 30s in Hitler's Germany, and suddenly she's has to come to terms with and deal with issues of race and then the Second World War, and that discovery it's kind of like it's framed by the two worst atrocities of the 20th century, the Holocaust and the atomic bomb. It happened during, it's the process of how it happened. It happened because of the Holocaust. She has to flee Germany, and so she's not working with Otto Hahn and Strassmann. She's one of the, as with the other scientists, they were very lucky. They were whisked away to safety. And then she doesn't realise, but what she's doing, what she's thinking about, is the seed of what will become the Manhattan Project. Only a couple of years later, though they don't really realise that at that point. So it was just kind of in between all these cataclysmic events, and also a history of women in science. I think is quite really important to her about her story. I'm not sure I've got that in the story though. But apart from the burning the hair in the laboratories.
Well, the fact that she's a woman gets it in the story.
it's funny, the whole project has thrown up lots and lots of characters who seem to have been written out of history. Henrietta Leavitt, who's an astronomer that Tim's advised on with regard to Sarah Maitland's story. There's a character called Henrietta Leavitt who made the discovery which enabled us to work out distances in terms of the universe, and later, eventually, enabled us to work out that the universe was expanding, that there was some kind of Big Bang process going on. And she was a very, very quiet character again. She had hearing problems that got worse and worse during her life. She was paid $10 a week. Before computers were invented, they used the word computer to refer to menials working in labs, and she was that computer, that menial. And she died young as well, didn't she? And there was a story of her and the Nobel Prize trying to give her the award. Wasn't there?
No, she was. I mean, yeah, it came to. I noticed this story really when I was surprised by the existence of something called the computer room. And okay, we all know what a computer room is. It's what computers are. In this case, the computers were the people, and actually they were all women. You know, this was the computer room was often a basement room, and there'd be basically a large group of women in there who would do the calculations, and you know, they might be fed in at one end, and out the other end would come some answer. And they were large, you know, as you say, it was largely deemed to be it was a low-paid job, but of course, what happened is, in practice, these people, you know, obviously, quite a few of these people would turn out to make important contributions, and she made this from years actually of sitting studying these glass photographic plates of the southern galaxies, the Small Magellanic and Large Magellanic Clouds. She was measuring the brightnesses of stars, incredibly detailed, time-consuming, and quite, you know, very complex work in terms of making sure that these things were calibrated and so on. She realised that what happened was some of these stars pulsed and their brightness changed, and it turned out that the brighter ones, the ones that were intrinsically brighter, pulsed with a longer period. And she was the first to realise this, and that crucially allowed us to work out the distances, and it's still used today. It's one of the crucial distance measurements techniques used in astronomy, and it was what Hubble used just maybe a decade later in the 1920s to show that the distant galaxies were all moving away from us. It showed that the universe was expanding, and what Einstein called his greatest blunder when he changed his general theory of relativity to make sure the universe didn't expand. Yeah, she was a real character who, I mean, she has got some recognition now, I think, but certainly at the time it was, yeah, there was some dodgy stuff going on, I think, actually, as to how people valued the work she was doing.